Hey guys, today I wanted to do a quick video on all the ways I keep organized, or specifically all the lists and reminders I set for myself throughout the days and weeks and overall every year. I set probably close to 100 different lists and reminders. Actually, probably a lot more. I set multiple reminders every single day. A lot of it being very mundane, basic things, some of it being more long term important things. But overall, I think it's a very good way of staying organized, especially I use Apple for everything. I'm not the biggest fan of Apple, but they do a nice job with things like lists and reminders. Um, Especially since I have an iPad and an iPhone, I could use those interchangeably and everything hands off and saves very well. An example of that is when I'm making a list on my iPad, I could then pull it up on my phone when I'm out and about and adjust that list. For example, I make a ShopRite list when I want to go grocery shopping. On my iPad, I add all the things I remember and stuff, and then as I'm around the house and realize I'm missing something, I could then go on that list either on my iPad, or if my phone is close by, I'll go on my phone and add it real quick. Um, Best way to do all these lists and reminders is that you have to do it immediately. If something crosses your mind of, oh, I need to add that to a list, or oh, I want to remind myself about that later, you have to set those lists and reminders immediately, or else you will forget about them. That's something I've learned by doing this over many years, is that the whole point of this system and the way it works is that you have to set everything immediately before you forget. So even very, very mundane things I will set reminders for myself for. For example, if I want to remind myself that I need to shave tonight, like I shave usually every other day, every 3 days, something like that, I will set a reminder this morning that, oh, tonight before you go to bed, make sure you shave so that you have a clean shave tomorrow morning. Just very basic things like that. I'll set reminders for. Even things that I'll be eating lunch and say, oh, after lunch, I want to get this thing done. I'll set a reminder for myself right there and then to remind myself in half an hour to do that task. That's the only thing that's a little iffy with the reminders and lists and all that stuff, is when I set reminders for myself, it's hard. It's really a guessing game of what time I'm going to do things. A lot of times I'll guesstimate to the nearest 15 minutes, half hour, when I think I'll be able to do that task. For example, I set multiple reminders for myself to go off at like 9 a.m., 9:15, 9:30, which is around the time where I start to get out of bed, get moving for the day. I'm done like looking at news and stuff on my iPad in bed, all that. So I have a bunch of reminders lined up, like my reminder that repeats every morning to post a video. That reminder goes off at 9 a.m. every morning. It reminds me I should get out of bed, clean myself up, and record a video. The nice thing about reminders is not only are they good for mundane short-term things, I also have a reminder set that, oh, I have a reminder in 2023 that I need to get my passport updated or replaced. I also have a reminder set that later this year, my ID needs to be replaced for the new IDs that are needed for airport travel, which you could read more about. I don't know the details of it yet, so that's something you should look up. I think it's by October. Everyone needs to have some kind of special driver's license so that they could travel and go on airplanes and all that. So learn about that. Anyway, that's in terms of reminders. It's literally everything and anything. I have multiple reminders on the Reminders app, at least, that Apple has. You could set the reminder, time, date, and you can even put like little notes under the reminders. Like I'll say a reminder, oh, remember, leave the house at this time, and then I'll have little notes under that reminder of the things I need to grab as I'm leaving the house: my water bottle, my wallet, things like that. Another thing, getting more in depth on the list side of things, is I use lists for different ranges of things. Most of them, or at least the most useful lists I have, are probably my packing lists, I'll call them, which is I have a list that I created senior year of high school when I was preparing to pack for college. Like all the things I was thinking of that I was using day to day that I wanted to make sure I had in college. I made a packing list in 2016. I've been using that same exact packing list with updates along the way as needed of things I bring to college every year. So every time I'm packing up for college, including every other semester and things like that, I look at that list and I know I have pretty much everything I absolutely need on there. and it really helps me not miss on those really little things that you would easily forget about. For example, something like Q-tips. I like to clean my ears, so I always want to pack two Q-tips. That's a little stuff that most people I feel like would forget without really making a list like that. I also use lists a lot for when I'm doing short trips, like when I went to Florida last week. I think it was last week. Yeah, 2 weeks ago, whatever. I made a list for that. Just a quick, like, how many pairs of shorts I want to bring, shirts, toiletries, all that kind of stuff. Lists also come in handy for me. I'll make a list at the beginning of the day if I have a really busy day, especially when school gets started and stuff. I'll make a list of in that beginning of that day of just the different tasks I'm going to get completed that day. Another big thing I do with lists that I've kind of adjusted and converted is that I have what I call a watch list, which is a bunch of TV shows and movies that people tell me about or I see commercials for and things like that I want to eventually watch or have some interest in watching. That used to be something I did in the Notes app. All these lists I've been talking about, I primarily do within my Notes app, except for something like that, my watch list. This past year, I converted that watch list over to a list made in IMBD, which is the main movie, TV show ranking informational site that a lot of people use. They have a pretty decent system where you can make a watch list in there and add all the shows and movies, and you can look them up and it'll be linked to the information about that show or movie. It really helps things stay organized that way. One of the fun things I like to do is if I don't have a specific movie or show I want to watch, but I want to be watching something, I'll use a random number generator and say, all right, pick a number from 1 to 200, which is about how many shows and movies I've listed, about 200. And it picks number 147, and that will be correlated with a numbered item on the list in my IMBD app that is a TV show or movie, and that's what I'll start watching. Other things that I use the Notes app for a lot more than just lists, but this episode I want to focus primarily on lists. I feel very useful is to write down things in general. I have a lot of things like different things about college, little notes I've had with like my room number and things like that I save in my notes. I am in the bad habit of I save a lot of things in my notes I probably shouldn't, like the code to get into my dorm. Realistically, I imagine that if someone took the time to break into my data or information enough that they can get the code to my dorm, they'd probably also have the capability to break into more important things like my social security number or whatever. So I don't really worry about having things like that on there when I probably should. It's not safe to put your personal information and stuff on something like the Notes app in Apple, but it is what it is. So again, I do that. I wouldn't recommend it because it's not safe. But staying on the topic of notes and reminders and stuff, the Reminders app has a lot built into it that I don't utilize a lot because I haven't made it work properly before. For example, they have a setting where as you're leaving the house, once you leave like a 1 mile radius of your house, a reminder will pop up like, hey, you wanted to buy milk while you were out, that kind of thing. Same thing coming in, you can set a radius that as you're coming home, like, hey, when you got home, you wanted to remember to do this. That's a setting it does have available. For that one specifically, like distance and range and things like that isn't super useful to me because a lot of times I'm traveling fairly close to home, or a lot of times when I'm at school, everything's within a mile radius. So that kind of, it would need to be a lot more, the radius would need to be a lot tighter for it to be useful to me. So I don't use it a lot. I just kind of guesstimate times. Like I know I have class until 9 o'clock. So I'll set reminders for like 9:15 p.m. to do things like, oh, you wanted to take this out of your bag and things like that. Another setting it has that I don't utilize a ton is as soon as you get into a car and it hooks up to AirPlay or CarPlay or whatever they call it for Apple. I don't have a car that does that, but I feel like that's something that would help fix that issue I have where it's like, oh, I live too close to home. Like if I wanted to buy milk, the place I get milk from is within a mile of my house or whatever, so that alarm or reminder wouldn't go off properly. If I had the CarPlay feature, that might work better because if it hooks up to CarPlay when I get in the car, it'd be great. Let's see. I'm just looking through my reminders and apps on my iPad, seeing if there's any specific ones that work well that I should want to bring up. Again, shopping is a nice one. Like I have one that says workshopping, and it's just a list of things that when I start work in the summer, I wanted to make sure I buy for like my office or just work life in general. I also have lists of like, some money stuff that I keep track of, like how much money I'm spending on certain things, those type of items. Let's see if I could find any helpful reminders that would be good to talk about. For example, today I have 4 reminders, 2 of them being about this YouTube post, which I can mark as complete now. And then I also wanted to fix some stuff on my YouTube channel, but I still haven't gotten around to that. Big issue I have is I set these reminders for myself and I keep pushing them off. The reminders are there to keep it in the forefront of your mind. It doesn't force you to do them really, which is, your own issue you have to get over. But reminders, I do everything through it has different tabs, like you can make folders and all that kind of stuff for reminders. I always look at everything through schedule just because I think it's the cleanest. I have all my reminders scheduled anyway, so this makes the most sense for me. If you utilize the folders and stuff a bit better, it does a decent job with having a priority system where you could put certain reminders as high priority and they'll be at the top of the list of those kind of things. One downside to the reminders app, the way I use it, is that there's a lot of my reminders that it'd be great to have sub reminders to them, which is a capability that the reminders app has, but since I already have times and dates hooked up with all of them, it doesn't let me use subtasks, which seems weird to me, but for whatever reason, that's how the app's set up, that if you have a time and date set up for a reminder, you can't add sub reminders to that item. I have a reminder to do laundry, order medication, to set my fantasy football lineup this weekend, reminders to print forms for college, reminders to update my LinkedIn and my calendars and homework app and stuff eventually for school. Let's see what else. I even have reminders to weigh myself every Monday. I have reminders that I like to trim my nails at least once a week, trim my nails and all that kind of stuff. Let's see, I have reminders of that eventually I need to look up how I graduate. Like, I know eventually I need to fill out forms to register for graduation, all that. I have reminders set up for all that kind of stuff. And so my real late reminder is actually 2026 that I need to renew my passport. That's my latest reminder that I have listed as I see right now. So yeah, it can be very, very useful. And ultimately, I hope this was something that gave you a little insight, just a good life tip, life hack, whatever you want to call it, that I utilize every single day. And I think it's really made a difference of making sure I kind of get things done, stay organized, all that. It's definitely, the way I have is a bit, I guess you would call it neurotic. It's probably too much. Honestly, it could be worse. I could be a lot more crazy and obsessive about it, but it does keep me very organized. So that is a big plus to me. So just something to keep in the back of your mind of an idea you could take from me. And other than that, I'll wrap up this video for today and hope to see you all tomorrow.